Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Live in Truth podcast. We are back. We've got the plastic off the headsets. We are for real this time. As always, I am your producer, Sean. I am joined by your host,
Nifiah. Hey, everybody.
And today we're going to be talking about a super important area that is criminally overlooked, your gut bacteria, and your overall gut health.
As Sean stated, we're talking about your gut or your belly or your stomach, whatever you want to call it. It is your GI tract. This important part of your body is really, it determines your overall health. Your gut determines your overall health. So today we're going to dive into prebiotics and probiotics and what foods will help ensure good gut health.
Yeah, totally. So I was just about to ask you a question, but you sort of answered it. I was going to say, is your gut health sort of predetermined by, genetics? Are you born with great gut health or bad gut health? Or what is the role of what you're putting into your body and what you're doing in your everyday life have to play in how you're feeling there?
Well, no, you are not predisposed to anything. And if you are, it's on a very minimal basis. So what you put in your body does determine whether or not you have good or bad gut health. And here at Live in Truth, we encourage a plant-based diet so that you can get those good pre and probiotics, and your belly, if you will, feels good all the time. So as we know, prebiotics and probiotics are a pretty big deal right now in the world, and people don't really know what they are. Even though they sound familiar, they're totally different. So your prebiotic foods are your whole grains, your bananas, your greens, your onions, your garlic, and soybeans, and they act as foods to produce good gut health. Your probiotic foods, you all hear about it as your yogurts and things like that, and dairy. Live in Truth, we don't deal in that type of things. Those things are not good for your body. But a good probiotic food helps to maintain the balance of that bacteria in the gut.
And it's really interesting that you say that, because I've certainly seen the word probiotic on the front of, a container of yogurt or something like that. But really, in my head, when you say prebiotic and probiotic, I'm thinking of, again, unfortunately, like a pill, a little capsule that you take in the morning or after your meals to promote this really good gut health. But you're telling us right now that you get the stuff right out of the food that you're consuming.
Yeah, your probiotics are living microorganisms, bacteria and yeast that naturally live in our bodies. And your body contains a mixture of both. Your prebiotics and probiotics work in synergy, and they function as a source for those microorganisms to grow and to do what they need to do to balance out everything.
So what does good gut health look like? What does good gut health feel like? How do you know if you're in good or bad gut health?
Well, good gut health is beneficial for fighting the presence of disease. Good gut health is indicative of your detox status, your excretion status. So we defecate, and how you defecate, that is a determination of if you have good gut health or bad gut health going on. So everybody should use the bathroom at the very least, twice a day or after every meal. So if you eat 2 meals a day, you should excrete any waste from your body that your body does not need. And that should be a solid mass. Bad gut health or bad bacteria or something that is not meshing well in the GI tract, you're usually going to have a loose stool, diarrhea, or even constipation.
Mm-hmm. And so you're saying you should be using the bathroom or getting out what you put in, after every meal. So what role does when you eat play in this matter? Say you eat really late at night, right before bed, maybe you don't use the bathroom for another 8, 10, 12 hours. Does that have any role in any of this?
It does. When we are sleeping, so if you eat late and you go to sleep on that, your body is already working hard during the sleeping process. It's regenerating your system. There is some digestion going on. So you're causing your body to work harder than it needs to when it's already in that process. So you're overworking it. Eating late does cause some issues. It may cause you to have to get up in the middle of the night. It might interrupt that rest because your body, instead of in a restful recovery mode, it's in a working mode. A lot of people who eat late, they talk about having nightmares. Things like that happen when you are eating late. So definitely, to answer your question, the time that you eat and what you're eating makes a huge difference. So I say this almost every podcast. Each morning when I wake up, I have a bottle of room temperature water or a cup of warm lemon water to get my gut going. I drink that before I even get out of the bed. I sit up, I thank God, I drink my water. And by the time I get up and get to the bathroom, it is flushing through my system. So that's getting your system going.
So to go back to what you were originally saying, a telltale sign of how you're doing in there is what you see when it comes out. You talked about having a solid stool. Mm-hmm. What are some of the type of things you can eat to ensure that that's what you're getting?
Right. You want to eat foods that are high in fiber. We can't digest a lot of fiber, but the gut bacteria digest that fiber for us and allows us to have those healthy bowel movements. So high prebiotic fiber includes oats, bananas, berries, artichokes, things of that nature. On the subject of healthy bowel movements, a lot of people don't know when you have a healthy bowel movement and a complete bowel movement, when you go to clean yourself, your piece of tissue should be nearly clean. And that tells you that you've had a complete and healthy bowel movement.
I don't know if I can keep doing this. After every one of these podcasts, I have to just take a real long look at myself. You make me rethink everything I thought I knew about myself. So are those things you were talking about, the artichokes, the bananas, those high fibrous foods? Just to reiterate, would those be prebiotics or probiotics?
Those are prebiotics. And so, again, your prebiotics and your probiotics work in synergy. Your probiotics are already in your gut. They are already living microorganisms in your gut. So your prebiotics are what you put into them, what you ingest to make them work.
Got it.
Another thing that it's happening in the world today is everybody wants to go and buy their prebiotics in a bottle, in a pill. We talked about supplements. Supplements are just that, supplements. If your body is unable to make a certain thing and it has been determined by lab testing the appropriate diagnostics, then you would supplement. Sure. But you don't need to supplement a prebiotic with a pill. You can eat your prebiotic. Again, additional foods are asparagus, are garlic and onions. And I think I might have mentioned those already. You can eat your medicine. Food is medicine. And I say that quite frequently. Mm-hmm. Food is medicine. You don't need to spend money on a pill that's in a bottle that may not even do what it's touted to do, what it's being sold as.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, that is certainly not the first time you've brought up the importance of really being aware of the supplementation. You've even talked about that with things like protein powder, where really, if you have the correct nutrition plan for yourself, you might not even need the 1 or 2 scoops. You may be able to get all the protein you're looking for in a day out of the foods you're eating if you're eating the correct food.
Correct. Absolutely. And when you pair your foods correctly and you eat the correct amount of food, you will get everything that you need out of those foods.
So we talked about some of the things that will help you. What are some of the things that are sort of working against us in our gut health?
You all should know, I'm going to say meat and saturated fats work horribly against us. They are the enemy. They are not an ally. It takes us anywhere from 4 hours to 24 hours. And sometimes based on the amount of meat you're eating, and if it's red meat, it could take you up to 3 days to digest that meat. And so what that does, it throws off your pH in your stomach. So our normal pH in our stomach is between like 7.35 to 7.4. I'm sorry, our normal body pH is 7.35 to about 7.4. And our normal stomach pH is around 3. So it's more acidic. And even that high level of acidity can't break down that meat fast enough. Mm-hmm. So you want to eat the things that will keep that acidity level high enough to break down the foods. And eating meat just decreases it. As you age, it decreases. Eating meats and saturated fats, that decreases it. Eating sugar, that also decreases our pH. And we need that healthy high level of acidity, that acidic environment, in order for us to digest properly.
And what maybe, again, we talked about what having healthy gut bacteria or healthy gut would look and feel like. What are some, and you talked about soft stools or constipation. What are some other signs or things that can happen as a result of bad gut health?
Gas, bloating. We talked about diarrhea, vomiting, indigestion. So let's talk about gas. Or flatulence. Nobody, wants to walk around gassy. When you're gassy, it hurts. Mm-hmm. You can get bloated. You're belching. I'm belching because I'm talking and swallowing air, not because I'm gassy. And that can be very embarrassing, and it can be very painful. What I have found, I used to be TMI. I used to be so gassy when I didn't eat a plant-based diet. And it is rare that I have any flatulence unless I am having a BM, because now I eat a better diet. My body is able to break it down and use what it needs and just excrete the rest. Now, that being said, when you do switch to a plant-based diet and that's not what your body is used to, you may experience an increased level of gassiness because you're not used to eating the beans and the high level of fibers and things like that. Bloating. Bloating is a form of inflammation. So again, you're eating things like dairy, cheese, milk. Some people have wheat and gluten intolerances, which causes your stomach to swell and hurt. Indigestion. If you've ever experienced it, heartburn, you don't want to experience it at all. Other issues you could have is esophageal issues, especially if you're experiencing reflux from eating things that your body is not digesting well. It's coming back up. Mm-hmm. And that's a horrible experience. So that reflux, where you are regurgitating food back up through your esophagus, can eventually lead to Barrett's esophagus or esophageal cancer. So just eating foods that are not healthy for you, and you think, oh, I just got a stomach ache, or as Sean put it, that rough trip to the bathroom, it can lead to more than that.
Sure, and I feel like a lot of people maybe they sort of look at the symptoms a lot. So if they've got a lot of reflux, they go, oh, I've got acid reflux, I just need to take antacid pills when I eat. They're sort of looking at the symptoms a lot more than they're searching for the real cause, when it could be, you shouldn't be putting in your body in the first place what you're putting in there.
Right. And so Sean just said antacid for symptom relief of heartburn or GERD. And I just told you we need that acid. And so when you have to take an antacid because you have eaten something or you're experiencing severe heartburn, you are changing the pH level. And so again, you're putting your body at imbalance. Another thing that causes a great imbalance in the gut are antibiotics. Antibiotics change your gut bacteria, and you will need your probiotics to get them going again after you have had a series of antibiotics.
Yeah, I've had friends who have suffered very seriously with this. I guess they've been ill in the way where they've had to take lots of antibiotics, and which, like you just said, that destroys the good and bad bacteria that you've got going in, and it can leave you very susceptible to something else going wrong. And I've seen that firsthand with some of my close friends, that happening to them. Can we tie this a little bit more specifically to chronic illness?
Yeah. So when you are not feeling well, it is likely what you're eating. And you all know that is our platform that we stand on here at Live in Truth. What you're eating makes a difference. Your food is truly your medicine. So if we go from head to toe, when your digestion is compromised, our bodies underproduce neurotransmitters, which make us feel down. So one of those neurotransmitters is serotonin. And so serotonin is our feel-good neurotransmitter. And if we don't have that, we normally feel bad. We talk about eating a high level of sugar. Sugar in your gut, it is definitely not good. And so we know that sugar is an excitotoxin, and it causes issues like confusion, brain fog, and things of that nature. Research is showing that Alzheimer's, or they have named Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. And that's due to the food. We all know that diabetes is due to the food we eat. Alzheimer's, the ingestion of sugar, it could be an issue. The verdict's still out on that, but we are naming Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes. We just talked about heartburn and chest pain from GERD, esophageal issues. We could go on and on. On and on.
Definitely. And I had a train of thought, but just hearing that news just about the prospect of some of the things that could be playing in the Alzheimer's and that sort of being named type 3 diabetes, that sort of just blew my mind. I'm thinking like, wow, we've got to dedicate an entire episode to that.
We will do that.
But where I wanted to go was, I think another thing people maybe quite don't realize is how much control your bacteria has over your body. And what I mean by that is, my question to you is, how do we get in control of our bacteria? Because a lot of the times it can be your good or bad bacteria that's like really making you crave that sugar or the red meat. Like what's in your body wants what it wants as well. And sometimes that's, sort of directly telling you like, ooh, this is what sounds good right now. So how do we get and stay on top of that?
So that's a good question, Sean. And I talk a lot about abstaining from the things that are not good for us, that are not healthy for us, and that are frankly killing us. So as Sean said, the food you eat, your bacteria in your body kind of determines what you're craving. It's because you're eating things that are of an addictive nature. So your sugar, your meats, your dairy, they are all very addictive foods. And people don't understand how food can be an addiction, and it truly is. So as I state and I practice, you have to abstain from those things that have that high addictive nature. Sure. Cheese, for instance, the casein in the cheese is an addictive property. So that's why people feel like, oh, I can't give up my cheese, but you surely can.
What else?
So there are chemical processes that are related to gut bacteria. And so Sean he asked about chronic disease, and those chemical processes can lead to heart failure or atherosclerosis, which is plaque buildup. And that what happens after that, you end up having a major heart attack or a stroke. And again, that plaque buildup is caused by the saturated fat in meat. And so you want to avoid those things. The same with diabetes. You all know I am very, very passionate about diabetes. And we continue to have the issue with diabetes because the saturated fat is clogging up the pathways for the insulin to escort the glucose into the muscle and the liver cells properly. So it's just hanging around in your blood. We have to eliminate the fats and sugars out of our diets immediately. There is no point of moderation or a little bit at a time, or I'll stop eating this week and next week I'll try this. We need to eliminate it immediately, or we're going to continue to deal with bad gut health, major stomach issues, H. pylori, things like SIBO. I'm not an expert in SIBO, but I know an expert in SIBO. There are so many gut issues that we experience because we are eating the wrong food. And we can correct that through a whole food, plant-based diet.
Well, just as we're getting to the end here, you've been cited many times on this podcast saying that at this current stage in life, this is the best that you have ever felt. So what are some of the things that you intentionally eat on a day-to-day basis to make sure that your gut health is in check?
I absolutely eat something green every day. If I am not growing the greens or they're out of season, I'm buying the big packages from the grocery store, and I can eat one of those packages within 2 days because I'm making sure to eat a whole cup full of these vegetables, either in smoothies, just fresh as they are, or cooked in something else. My bananas, my seeds, and anything that is high in fiber.
Awesome.
The most important thing I do, though, is I drink a lot of water. So water is such a great benefit to us. And I think people sleep on it simply because it doesn't taste good. But water is so good for you. Even I have my nice cold water. that's another thing you need to do. You need to drink a healthy amount of water each day throughout the day.
And what I'll say to those people who say water doesn't taste good, you may be drinking not good water, because that is not my experience. I do have a purifier in my home. The water I drink is very crisp, very refreshing. And not to make light of any situations going on in the world, there is things going on in Flint, Michigan, and in Jackson, Mississippi, where the water is quite literally poisonous. But that is just something to look at. If you're turning on your faucet and you're saying, hey, I don't really, like what this tastes like, it may not be the water that you don't like.
Right. That's a good point, Sean. And on the subject of water, if you look at my post, you see that my water is normally in a glass or metal container. There are some situations in when people don't have that choice, like right now in Jackson, Mississippi, they are providing bottled plastic water. I would drink as much water as you need, but I would limit drinking out of plastic bottles. We don't control the environments that those bottles are in. And so with them being shipped, the heat and cold and expansion of those, even though they're saying this is BPA-free plastic, that heat, expansion, cold, freezing back and forth, it still allows for leaking of chemicals that we do not see into the water. Even if they're on a very, 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 very micro level, the buildup of it can eventually cause a problem. If you don't like plain water, which I love plain water, you can flavor that with lemon or lime or watermelon or any fruit you want to, mint, great flavors that are really, really healthy for you.
And just to reiterate one last time, because I cannot stress enough that I think that this is one of the most important areas in your body, what are the things to do for good gut bacteria?
Eat a plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet, which include fermented foods. So that's what yogurt is. And in a plant-based diet, that would be your tofu, your soybeans, things of that nature. Make sure you eat your colors, eat the rainbow. I always say that, eat the rainbow. So your plate should literally look like a rainbow when you fix it. You want to have good sleep hygiene, decrease your levels of stress. Your environment is very, very important. Get outside, get fresh air, get outside and get some sun. Even the people that you are around are very important. You want to make sure that you have positive people around you. Move your body. Move your body. When you move, you move. Mm-hmm. So when you're exercising, if you are constipated or have issues with going to the bathroom, you don't eliminate regularly, start to move. Get in a good exercise program or a good workout, 20 to 30 minutes. Jog in place. Do whatever you can physically do safely, and you will move. You will have a bowel movement. So remember, when you move, you move. So if you can't go, get to moving and you'll go.
All right, everybody. Eat right. Drink lots of water.
Sleep well.
Sleep well.
Love good.
If you move, you move. Thank you guys for listening to another episode. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Live in Truth podcast. Stay connected with all things Live in Truth by checking out our webpage, livintruth.org. Follow us at livin.truth on Instagram and at livintruth on all other platforms. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Schedule your consultation with Nifiah today and start living an intentional life of vitality through nutrition.